Hey everyone, you're watching We Had That, and today I'm going to talk about the 1988 Wave 7 G.I. Joe Skidmark action figure. Unlike many toys for vehicles in my childhood that were labeled figures sold separately, many of the G.I. Joe vehicles not only came with a figure, but a unique character who wasn't available without buying the vehicle. Some of the early G.I. Joe vehicle drivers, like Clutch, for example, were favorite characters of mine as a kid. Steeler was often the team leader and saw much more action than his tank. Wild Bill was not only a popular action figure with my friends, but also included in a fair amount of the G.I. Joe cartoons and comic books. Frostbite and Thunder were often part of the action even when their vehicles stayed back at the motor pool. Cobra 2 had several very cool vehicle drivers among their ranks. As the years passed, it felt like maybe some of the vehicle drivers weren't given as much thought as in the early years. Some of them felt a little thrown together. Backstop, for example, wasn't the coolest looking figure, and his file card made him out to be an overly aggressive jerk from Canada. 1988's Windmill felt like he was designed by someone who had run out of all the good colors in their colored pencil box and were left with only neon green and orange. And on top of that, it felt like he was sketched out in a few minutes by someone who remembered he was late for a deadline. It was at this same time in 1988 that the G.I. Joe character with the worst code name ever arrived on the scene, Skidmark. Skidmark was the driver of the Desert Fox Jeep. The Desert Fox wasn't a bad vehicle. Sure, it didn't live up to the Vamp or the Awstriker, but the Desert Fox was pretty cool. But with a driver named Skidmark, it kind of managed to take away a little bit of the coolness of the vehicle. According to his file card, Skidmark was such a good guy that he was annoying by being so good. Although the file card didn't specifically say it, I wondered if he was obnoxious about being so good, kind of a I'm better than you type of personality. But his one weakness was driving fast. Honestly, his name was a bad introduction and the file card didn't really sell it. The design of the figure would have been okay if it weren't for all of the bright orange. He wore an orange helmet, an orange vest, an orange leg holster with an orange pistol, and a pair of orange boots. I liked my G.I. Joe figures to look a little more military, and orange wasn't very military looking to me. In a different color, his vest with molded on knife and pistol and some bullets would have been pretty cool, but the orange just really killed it. On his right forearm, he had two knives molded on just under his wrist. That seems like a good way to accidentally slit your wrists to me. With all of the other places you could carry a knife, I just don't get this placement. Skidmark was only in a few issues of the comic book, but apparently I wasn't the only one to think they used too much orange when designing this guy. The colors of his outfit were changed in the comic to make him look more military. I actually think the figure could have looked a lot better if he had been released in the comic book colors. Skidmark first appeared in issue number 72 of the Marvel Comics. In fact, he's even on the cover driving the Desert Fox. When Skidmark first appears in the story, he's complaining about wild card driving too fast, which seems to contradict his attitude towards driving speeds on his file card. His next comment is that his mother told him never to pick up hitchhikers. When they arrive at the base and get out of the Desert Fox, we get a better look at Skidmark's comic book version of his uniform. It's easily much better than the colors of the actual figure. He proceeds to get on Gung-Ho's bad side very quickly by pointing out that he's creasing the pages of his orders. Even in the comic book, Skidmark is living up to his name. On page 11, we get both a good close-up image of Skidmark and a good image from head to toe. For the next several pages, Skidmark and the other new guys are shown around the pit. When an intruder is discovered, Skidmark drives the Desert Fox in pursuit. Skidmark continues his story on the first few pages of issue number 73, but is mostly just standing around as Spirit discovers that someone has hitched a ride onto the base by holding on to the bottom of the Desert Fox. In issue number 88, writer Larry Hama uses Skidmark to explain to Roadblock that the U.S. sold weapons to another country who has since changed leadership, and the sale bit us in the butt. A pretty heavy topic for a kid's comic, but that's really his only appearance. Skidmark appears on one page with one line of dialogue in issue number 100, where he's driving Dusty through the desert in the Desert Fox. I believe that's Skidmark's last appearance in the original Marvel comic run. Since Skidmark was released in 1988, he missed the Sunbow cartoon by one season, and the Deke cartoon didn't start for a year, so he was never animated for a G.I. Joe cartoon. He was featured in the commercial for the Desert Fox, and there's a fraction of a second where he was animated for this commercial, but he's pretty much unidentifiable here. As far as I can tell, the Desert Fox box was the only time Skidmark was featured on any box art for a G.I. Joe vehicle. I'm curious to hear what you thought of Skidmark. Did you have a Skidmark action figure when you were a kid? What did you think of him back then? What do you think of him now? Was he a main character on your team, or did he spend most of his time hanging out back at the motor pool? Tell me in the comments below. Also, please give this video a thumbs up, and if you have a chance, it would be great if you would share it on social media. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe to my channel and hit that notifications bell so you'll know when I post new videos. As always, thanks for watching.